So we're here with Dr. Nina Crutchfield with National FFA. She is our State Relations Specialist, and she's assigned to the Southern region. So I've known Nina for many years now, both as a teacher and as a state staff. So thanks for joining us today, Nina. How you been doing?
Doing well, and it's always a pleasure to join Louisiana teachers. I wish I could do it in person, as we always say in these Zoom meetings nowadays, but this is our next best thing to get to share out some ideas and thoughts around SAE. So we'll just hop right in. And I did do a little pre-survey. Hopefully some of you saw that in your emails, even though you didn't probably respond to it. But I wanted to kind of take the temperature of Louisiana ag teachers around SAE. And you guys are pretty normal, I'll be honest with you. It was nothing surprising or shocking with just those few questions. What it does kind of showcase, and this is nationwide, we all pretty much agree that we should be doing SAE. We all pretty much agree that it's not an unreasonable expectation that all of our students have one. Our problem is in practice. We believe that, but we're not practicing it. And so that's kind of our struggle with it. And it has been, I'll be honest with you, since the beginning. If you go all the way back to the beginning of Ag Ed, that even then it was a struggle. How do we get students doing these hands-on activities and experiential learning? So I will also say our struggle is, and I don't know if it's so much a struggle, but the fact that we often invest our time where we get the most return on it. And so we often do SAEs with FFA members. We don't worry about it with the non-FFA members, even though we agree that we should all of our students should have one. So just kind of setting the stage for where we're at. Very normal, very usual around the country, but it doesn't mean that we can't continue to work on it. So I'm going to share, if you're not familiar with SAE for All. And so this is actually an initiative out of the Council for Ag Education. They've been working on it a long time. And so we finally have resources built up around the tenets of how do we make SAE inclusive for all of our students. And so, you know, I'm not a huge PowerPoint fan, but I'm going to share just one slide because I think that it's easier sometimes to see things visually versus me just talk about it. So if you really dive into the tenets of SAE for All, there are 5 of them. First and foremost, SAE should be career focused. And I think in practice, a lot of times we get kids to do things we like to do, not necessarily things that they like to do, or we convince them that they like it. And so then therefore they'll do it. It tends to sometimes be easier for us as instructors. The problem is when a kid comes into our program, we know they're not going into agriculture. How do we figure out how to do this for them? And so the main career focus. Now, I believe good enough ag teachers to take whatever students interested in and relate it to agriculture somehow. And so sometimes we got to put a spin on things, but that's okay. That's what we do. The other second tenet is that SAEs can be done anywhere, anytime. Most of the time, I think we have the traditional thought that it has to be done outside of class time. Well, that's not true. It can be done in class. And we actually have some types of SAEs that are specifically designed to be done during class time. Should be an extension of your teaching. And so why wouldn't we make that part of class time? The hangup comes when you want that FFA member to apply for awards. That's really the only place that it says that SAEs have to be done outside of class. And so, think about that. It kind of maybe might change your mind a little bit and make it easier to understand how you can get 100% of your students to do an SAE if you're a little bit more flexible on where and when you deliver that. Another tenet of for All is that it promotes partnerships with our students, professional partnerships, building that professional network. And I know we forget about that. But actually, if you go into the SAE for All materials, if you look at the service learning type of SAE, immersion SAE, or you look at the school-based enterprise type, even the entrepreneur type, really promote students creating that professional network because they've got to have an advisory committee. And so figuring out who in your community is related to that type of SAE and getting their input, very much a professional networking type of collaboration effort is part of our SAE for All initiatives. Then supervision of any form. I think that, or many forms, a lot of times as teachers, we think about supervision, we've got to do it all. We've got to make home visits. We've got to do all, it's us. And the reality is that sometimes I'm not the best person to supervise an SAE. If I've got a student who wants to be a professional electrician someday, I am not a professional electrician. So why wouldn't I get somebody to student to teach them? Maybe eventually they end up in an apprenticeship program, whatever that looks like for that student. So knowing that it's not all on our shoulders to do the supervision kind of helps take away some of the weight, I think. And again, the expectation is that 100% of our students have an SAE. So if we kind of couch our conversation in those 5 tenets, I think that will help maybe shift our point of view around SAE a little bit and how we can deliver that. Kay, does that make sense?
It does. I think it shifts the paradigm, I guess you could call it. How many ag teachers do we know thought that you had an SAE if you were going to apply for a proficiency award? Or you had an SAE only if you were going to apply for a chapter, a state, or an American degree. So SAE for All is really making us realize that if SAE is truly part of the 3-circle model, it's valuable in and of itself. It doesn't necessarily have to be tied to what is the student going to win as an award resulting from that. Is that correct?
Yes. And even thinking broader, sometimes their career interests and what they're doing, there might be other groups out there that are a better arena for them to be motivated to participate in something else. A great example of that would be those kids who love to restore tractors. I see those often in my travels. Somebody's got 4 or 5 students who really love tractor restoration. We don't have a contest in that in FFA, but there is a whole nother professional organization out there that does. So why wouldn't you push your students to be a part of that? And you get to maybe just show up on the day that it's exhibited, or you just look at their record books, look at their pictures, or video. I mean, gosh, let's bring it into the 21st century. There's a way to supervise SAEs that you don't even have to leave your house. You can actually do it now. We've lived it a year and a half now. You've got Zoom, you've got FaceTime, all these different ways to supervise students versus having to go to their home. And of course, in an urban setting, that's got its whole other set of challenges of trying to supervise SAEs. So think about and try to be a little bit more flexible with our thoughts on how we deliver it, what it looks like, and then how we supervise it. Now, that's not to say we don't need some accountability. Obviously, you're going to need to be assigning grades to those SAE projects and efforts. So you do need to have some type of accountability, and why not use technology to accomplish that? All right, so now let's get to the meat of it and talk resources. So let me share my screen again. All right, so we actually have a website called SAE Connection Unstable. So I'm probably slowing down a little bit. Kate, can you give me a thumbs up? Can you still see and hear everything?
Yeah, it cracks
Okay.
every now and then, but you're good.
All right. Well, that's part of living in the sticks, right? All right. So SAE for All site, we try to make it as simple as possible. The only thing simpler is could have been like the number 4 instead of FOR page. And you can use this page. Your students can use this page. Parents can use this page. When you see the 3-component model, obviously that's giving us the background of why we do it. But you scroll down a little bit further and there's 3 buttons. One says, I'm new here. Tell me all about SAE. The second one, so here's all your resources to use to teach it, or it's a student section. They can actually as an independent study. So if you've got that stuff, they're your teacher's aide or something like that, you can actually have them go through this as an independent study module in and of itself. When we click over to the resource section, I think that's, yes. All right. So, it says bookmark this page for easy access. There you go. There's a tip right there in the yellow bar to help you do that. There's even a button on the right of that little yellow bar. It says access student resources. So you can just automatically hop over there. You don't have to hit the back button to get there. But I wanted to show these resources. We've got it set up a couple of different ways. And I say we, I should be saying the council has this set up. Not we as in NINA or National FFA. We're just part of the group that uses them. So overarching guide. So you could download the whole thing and put it in a big giant 3-ring binder, because when you print it off, I've done it. That's kind of what it ends up being. You could print off the entire student edition if you wanted to, but we've also got it chunked up if you slide down just a little bit further. Okay. So the foundational SAE materials for independent learning. Again, you know, maybe this could be some alternative learning instruction for the snow days we'll never have again. Although I don't know if Louisiana, you guys had too many snow days, maybe not in South, but maybe you're out for, you know, hurricanes or whatever, and you need some independent learning going on. We have these guides. They've got worksheets for the students. It walks them through there. There's videos associated with them. They click on the videos and it shows them what SAE is and how it works and all those kinds of things. So take a little bit of time and explore those, because it's all right there at your fingertips. We've got them divided up by grade level. And, you know, we talk about repetition. I know I had students that if I did it, you know, when they were a sophomore, by the time they were a senior, they will not have remembered that they did that. So you can reuse things with them sometimes. Our development team actually partnered with the council. When you see those activity or download the activities, these are actually worksheets. All right. So if you've come back from the fair and it's a Monday and you're wore out and you just don't know what you're going to do to keep them from peeling paint off the wall, you could print these worksheets out and walk them through some different activities around SAE. Okay. So it's all right there ready to go for you to use. We have something similar for immersion. We don't have activities around immersion SAEs, but we've got the guides for you, for the independent learning guides for the students and for you to use. So I did want to show those to you. Now, we did spend a little bit of time creating activities for school-based and service learning, because those are the two newest types. Those of us who are a little older, those are completely new for us. Those of you who are younger, it's probably old hat and you don't even worry about it. But I do want to point out on FFA.org side of things, if you go to the educator resources, we actually now have a lesson series for the research-based SAEs. So it's a whole lesson series. If you know nothing about doing research as type SAEs, the lesson series, you can learn it at the same time your students learn it. So that even exists over in the FFA.org educator resources section. So no excuse, you know, if I don't know how to do research, now you don't have to. We've got a lesson series for you to learn it as you teach it with your students. And then I wanted to point out towards the bottom, don't stop scrolling, because this has got some pretty cool stuff that we're building as we go. The auction industry and then the international ag development guides. Those are kind of like SAEs in a box. So if you've got a student who wants to be an auctioneer someday, here is an SAE pre-created for them. It was put together in partnership with the National Auctioneers Association. I don't think that's the right acronym, but anyway, the group that's their professional organization. So you've got that student, and by the time they walk through that SAE, they would actually could go to their training and come out a certified auctioneer. So that's kind of a cool item. The other one, international ag development, I helped put this one together, or actually just made the connections. I didn't do the actual labor work on it, but I was really excited because in some of my extra efforts, I don't think we understand how many of our students have a heart for service and development in the way of addressing hunger and injustices and those types of things. We had a partner who put up the money to create this SAE in a box virtually for this area. So if you've got a student who's really about service, 3 to 4 years by the time they get done, if they go all the way to the end to the capstone event, they're actually working with the partner who helped write this and could actually be going on an international trip with them to one of the countries where they're helping and working with the farmers there. So that's really a neat opportunity. I don't think very many teachers knows exists on our platform, on our SAE for All platform. You'll see the SAE idea cards. We've got video library. You've got the direct link to SAE grants, which by the way, are open right now. So you want to get your students signed up for those. There's $1,000 to either start or improve their SAE from the National FFA Foundation. And then we've got the Safety and Ag Youth Consortium link there. So teaching safety is a huge piece of the foundational SAE, which I'm going to pop over here and talk about in just a second. So we've got the link to that where lessons on virtually everything safety exists. Our friends in Extension have put most of those together, and we are not above using their materials for free, right? Why not? They've created it. All right, so let's talk foundational, because this is the meat of where we are. So you can see from the address, saeforall.org/foundational-SAE. And I actually tested it. I typed in saeforall.org and put a slash and typed in letter F, and it automatically popped up. So I didn't even have to remember the whole Euler. You can get to it from the other pages as well, but I just went faster this direction. So we have a welcome video. It's one of those sketch artist videos. You can use that with students. Take the time, watch it yourself. It really walks you through what foundational SAEs are. This is where every one of our students can have an SAE. And I guarantee you, if you're probably already doing some of this stuff, I almost would, I'd bet money on it, Cade, that I could take it down to the casino somewhere and make money, because I know teachers are doing some of this already. It's just a matter of how do we do it more purposeful, I'll get the word out, and, you know, kind of crank up the rigor in a little bit. So if we look at the components of foundational SAE, they're 5, okay? Things are in 5 today. So I know you're doing career exploration. The trick is, are you doing it with every student every year? Okay. I think sometimes we tend to stop and do them as freshmen or the first time they show up, and we don't do it again after that. But the reality is kids are changing their mind. They're learning things in other classes in your class that, hey, I'm really interested in. So they need to continue to do that career exploration. The other component, employability skills. I know y'all are teaching them how to show up at work on time, you know, be conscientious, teamwork, all of those things. So you're doing some of that. It's a matter of helping students learn to document it and realize that that's what they're doing. I think we think they learn things by osmosis sometimes. Just because we know it, they're going to know it, but we have to be very verbal and purposeful explaining. Personal financial management, you know, this is where our record keeping comes in. Helping students understand, you know, money coming in, money going out. You want to have more coming in than you've got going out. How many of your students can balance a checkbook? Okay. So we're talking about personal financial management. Workplace safety, whatever that workplace looks like. Again, tailored to their career field. You want them to explore, you know, what kind of safety measures, you know, sometimes it's mechanical and it's going to be a lot. Other times it might be kind of hard for a high school student to imagine what kind of safety is involved. So it's up to us to kind of lead them through that process. And then, of course, ag literacy. Don't we do that every day? I mean, that's what our classes are. You know, we're trying to turn out well-informed consumers. So someday that they'll talk good about ag and they'll enjoy the food in their plate versus talking trash about the industry. So all of those things, I guarantee you're already doing, and that's a foundational SAE. So the idea is, how do you document that? How do you get kids to think that through this is what they're doing, and how do you tailor it to their career focus? Okay. If you click on each one of those little plus signs, they expand, they give a little description. There's a lot more in those, the guide pieces of it, but I just wanted to kind of walk through those. Now you'll notice the last part says literacy can be transitioned into an immersion SAE. These are the ones y'all are familiar with. These are the ones that have a show stick or a lead rope, or, you know, you working at a farm store or something like that. These are the ones you're familiar with, and it expands into even more. And so you can kind of look at the different pathways that are available in agriculture. I mean, this is where your immersion essays really, really fit in. Okay. So I'm going to swap over to the immersion screen. It's got its own saying, immerse. saeforall.org/immersion. Now this is where our model kind of expands a little bit. If you haven't seen this, spend a little time digesting it. Okay. So you've got your foundational SAE at the top. 100% of our students are doing this, regardless of what class they're taking in our programs. We've got the materials. You noticed when we had the independent guides were divided up by grade level. So you've got the middle schoolish, early high school, grades 6 through 9. You've got intermediate, which would be that maybe that 9th grader coming in if you didn't have them before, to grade 11, and then advanced 11 to 12. Yes, there's overlap. That was intentional because we know kids come and go. Okay. But that immersion SAE comes out of that literacy. And so you're probably familiar with placement, you're familiar with ownership, you might even be familiar with research. And then the two newest ones would be the school-based and service learning. So as we look at those immersion SAEs, you'll notice the tab at the top that says graded. And, I said there needed to be some accountability. Anybody can supervise, but there needs to be accountability because we need to be grading it. If it's worth doing, it's worth grading. Okay. And you don't want to be grading only 10% of your students with SAEs. You need to be grading all of them. And so this is kind of, looking at that immersion. How does that look like? Because I think everybody jumps right to the second tab of recognition. As you pointed out, Kate, at the beginning, how are they going to get an FFA proficiency award? How are they going to get a state degree or an American degree? Not every kid gets those now. So why beat ourselves up over that? Stick with the graded side. Okay. Then you'll have those kids that move a little further, a little harder through to the recognition, and hopefully all of them will be contributing to their future careers. So the difference between placement and internship, and then ownership and entrepreneurs, I'll spend a couple seconds just talking about that. But all of this already exists for you guys. I know time is money, right? You never have enough of it, but it's maybe part of your own professional development plan with your administrator. Maybe you can work this in as part of that professional development, that you're going to work through all these resources and figure out how to implement it into your classroom. That's what I did. About year 7, I figured out I wasn't doing SAE a very good job. That's where I was really falling down in my program. And so that's became my professional development plan. But real quick, placement versus internship, ownership versus entrepreneurship. I told you that we're promoting professional partnerships. That's how you kick it up a notch from placement to intern. Oftentimes I'll use the example, I had students working at the feed store. Great placement SAE, lots of hours, learned lots of skills. If I had made an internship, I would have sat down with that student's boss and we'd have had a skill plan. We'd have had educational outcomes to say, okay, he or she's working for you. That's great. They're doing what you need them to do to get their paycheck. But here are the things I need them to learn while they're with you. And the student has input on that. The business owner has input on that. And at the end, you sign it off on the day and say, okay, here's our educational plan. Here are outcomes the student is going to have when they finish this SAE. And you might do it every semester. You might do it every year. It's going to depend on the student. So that's what we're doing. And maybe you've got even other internships. Maybe the internship doesn't last a whole semester. Maybe it's a 2-week internship. Maybe it's a month internship. You've got students who want to explore a lot of different things. It doesn't crouch that student into that I have a job and I can't do anything else. So sometimes we can call it an internship. It's even a little bit more exciting to a student because they're going to get to change. And sometimes parents like it better too, because they're not pigeonholed into one thing and they feel like they've been committed and they really didn't want to be committed for that long. Ownership to entrepreneurship. Okay. And this is kind of one of my soapboxes. I believe every student should be taught some entrepreneurship because they're not going very far from home and they're going to be business owners probably someday. So taking it from just ownership, which is our typical livestock ownership, is our most common one. That's not, we have some show animals. That's not entrepreneurship. Now, if I take my breeding heifers or my sows and I start getting them bred and I start selling pigs from that, I don't care if they're show pigs or not, but I'm starting to I have a business plan of how I'm going to spend money, I have goals to accomplish at the end of the year. I might have an advisory committee kind of helping me, that one producer in our county or maybe the next county who's producing hogs or cattle or whatever, maybe I'm working with them and they're showing me the ropes and how to do it. But I've got an educational plan. I've got a business plan. So that's the key of going from ownership to entrepreneur, is actually having that business plan and working with partners, whether it's your local banker or another producer, to help you work through that. And that can take on a lot of different forms depending on what the student's interested in, whether it's the green industry, the livestock industry, the computer industry, all of those things will look a little bit different, but that's kind of the difference between ownership and entrepreneurship. And so that's kind of it in a nutshell. There's a whole lot there that needs to be unpacked, but I would encourage teachers to spend some time on the SAE for All website, looking through those resources. Make it part of your professional development plan. Work smarter, not harder, we tell kids, and we need to be doing the same thing. And I think that you'll find that it's going to really improve student engagement, especially when it's tailored to what they're interested in, what they want to do as their career someday, whether it's in ag or not. Is really going to engage them a lot better in your classes. And I think you'll be a lot more satisfied with SAEs and delivering a total program. So Cade, what else can I cover in the short period of time we've got together?
I think you covered most all of it. My goal here was to show the resources that exist. I know that a lot of teachers in the state probably haven't heard of SAE for All. I know a lot of that was coming out right before pandemic started. And so we didn't have a very good opportunity to really do professional development on it, but it's definitely something that I know we need to improve on here. And I appreciate you spending some time with us. If they have any other questions, can they contact you through your email address about this?
Absolutely. They can call, text, email, whatever. And I will say, if there's one you're really wanting to try, I can connect you with some teachers who are already doing it and can give you all the best practices and tips on how to do it. There's teachers around the country who are doing the service learning really well. They're doing the school-based enterprise. They're doing the research ones, and they are more than willing to share what they're doing already. So you don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to feel like you are just peddling water and never getting anywhere.
Well, I appreciate it, Nina. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Absolutely.